There is a version of someone right now standing in the middle of a life that feels emptier than it should. That is the image that arrived the instant I opened this reading for you, Virgo. Not a dramatic scene, something quieter and somehow more unsettling than drama would be. A person moving through their ordinary routine, doing all the things that are supposed to make up a full life, and feeling a persistent, gnawing sense that something essential is missing, that something is you. This reading is going to walk you through exactly why this person pushed you away in the first place, what has shifted in them since then, what their current realization actually feels like from the inside, and what is likely to happen next. Stay with me through every layer of this because there is a lot of ground to cover, and I do not want to rush past anything that matters. Let me describe what I felt the moment this energy opened, because the very first impression often tells me the most about what we are dealing with. I felt regret arrive first, heavy, settled, the kind that has had time to mature rather than the sharp, immediate regret of a fresh mistake. This tells me some time has passed since the pushing away happened. This is not a person who pushed you away yesterday and is already panicking. This is someone who has had enough distance from the decision to fully sit with its consequences. And what they are sitting with now is considerably heavier than what they expected to feel when they first created this distance. Alongside the regret, I felt a specific kind of exhaustion, not physical tiredness, but the emotional exhaustion of someone who has been trying to convince themselves of something that simply is not true. They have been telling themselves they are fine without you, that the distance was necessary, even good, that space would bring clarity or relief. And the exhaustion comes from how much effort it has taken to maintain that story when their actual lived experience keeps contradicting it. I want to talk about why this person pushed you away in the first place, because understanding the root cause matters enormously here. Pushing someone away rarely comes from a single, simple reason. I am sensing layers to this. The first layer involves fear, specifically fear of how much you actually meant to them. There is a particular kind of panic that sets in for some people when they realize a connection has become significant enough to genuinely matter, significant enough that losing it would actually hurt. Rather than leaning into that vulnerability, some people respond by creating distance preemptively, as if pushing someone away first protects them from the pain of potentially being left later. I am also sensing something about timing or circumstance that played a role here. This may not have been purely about feelings toward you. There may have been external pressures, personal struggles, unresolved situations from earlier in their life that made them feel unprepared or unworthy of something as significant as what was developing between you. Sometimes people push away the very thing they want most because some part of them does not yet believe they deserve to keep it. And I am sensing a third layer here too, something about self-protection rooted in past experience. This person may have been hurt significantly before in a previous relationship or connection in a way that taught them to associate closeness with eventual pain. Pushing you away in their mind, even if they could not fully articulate this to themselves at the time, may have felt like getting ahead of an inevitable hurt rather than waiting to be blindsided by it later. I want to add a fourth layer here as well, because Spirit is showing me something about identity and self-worth that I think is important to include. There is a possibility that this person somewhere underneath all the other reasons, did not feel they measured up to what you deserved. Not because anything about you communicated that to them, but because of their own internal narrative about their value, their own history of feeling not quite enough in previous relationships or family dynamics. Sometimes people sabotage good things specifically because some part of them does not yet believe good things are meant to last for them. This is not a reflection of you or your worth in any way. It is entirely about the story this person has been carrying about themselves, often long before they ever met you. I want to be clear that none of these layers excuse the pain their choice caused you. Understanding why someone does something is not the same as saying it was acceptable or that you should simply set aside your own hurt because their reasons make sense on some psychological level. You are allowed to hold compassion for their struggle while also fully honoring the impact their choice had on your own life and your own heart. Let me speak to what their daily life has actually looked like since creating this distance, because I think the specifics matter here. I am seeing someone who has tried very hard to fill the space you used to occupy. New routines, perhaps new distractions, possibly even attempts at other connections or relationships that were meant to prove to themselves that they could move forward without you. None of it has worked the way they hoped it would. There is a flatness to everything else in their life right now, a sense of going through motions without the genuine engagement or aliveness that used to be present when you were part of their world. I am also seeing specific moments where your absence becomes acutely, almost painfully obvious. A particular time of day that used to involve you somehow, now sitting empty. A place you used to go together, now visited alone or avoided entirely. Conversations with other people that almost naturally drift toward mentioning you, even when this person tries to steer away from the topic. I want to go even deeper into these specific moments because I think the texture of them matters. There are mornings where this person wakes up and for just a few seconds before full consciousness fully sets in, reaches for the comfort of you being part of their world before remembering that you are not currently present in their daily life the way you once were. That brief gap between sleep and full waking, when the protective walls have not yet been rebuilt for the day, is when the truth of their feelings comes through most clearly and most painfully. There are also evenings, the quiet hours when distractions of the day have settled and there is nothing left to occupy their attention except their own thoughts, where the silence in their space becomes almost unbearable. I am sensing they have started avoiding too much quiet, filling their evenings with noise, with television, with scrolling through their phone, anything to avoid sitting with how loud the absence of you becomes in genuine stillness. I want to address something specific about the realization mentioned in this reading's title because I think it deserves careful unpacking. Realizing you cannot live without someone is rarely a single dramatic moment of clarity. More often, it is an accumulation, a series of smaller realizations that build on each other until the larger truth becomes impossible to keep denying. I am seeing this person experiencing exactly that kind of accumulation. Small moments, one after another, each one chipping away at the story they had been telling themselves about being fine, about the distance being for the best, about not needing what they walked away from. I am sensing a particular moment, relatively recent, that functioned almost like a final straw. Something happened, perhaps something seemingly unrelated to you on the surface, that suddenly made the absence undeniable rather than something they could continue rationalizing. This could have been encountering something that reminded them powerfully of a specific memory with you. It could have been a moment of genuine loneliness that hit harder than usual, stripping away the protective narrative they had been maintaining. Does this feel like it is connecting to your own situation right now, Virgo? Is there someone who created distance between you? And have you sensed, even from afar, that something in their energy toward you has been shifting recently? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what specifically resonates with your experience. I want to speak to what this person is actually feeling internally right now, because I think the emotional texture here is important to understand fully. There is grief present in their energy, genuine grief, the kind associated with real loss, even though technically they created this loss themselves through their own choice. This is a complicated, somewhat painful kind of grief because it comes tangled up with guilt. They are not simply missing you the way someone might miss a person who was taken from them by circumstance. They are missing you while also knowing, on some level, that their own actions created this absence. That combination, grief layered with self-directed guilt, tends to be particularly heavy to carry. I am also sensing fear present alongside the grief and guilt. Fear that too much time has passed. Fear that you have moved on completely and that any attempt to reach back toward you now would be unwelcome or even hurtful to bring up again. This fear has likely been part of what has kept them from reaching out already, even as their feelings have continued building toward an undeniable need to do something about this situation. Let me speak to what is shifting now, because Spirit is showing me genuine movement rather than someone stuck indefinitely in this internal struggle. I am seeing this person reaching a point where the fear of reaching out is finally becoming smaller than the pain of continued silence. This is significant because it suggests we are approaching an actual turning point rather than simply more prolonged internal conflict. The specific moment of final straw clarity I mentioned earlier has pushed something past its previous threshold. They are no longer simply missing you in private. They are beginning to actively consider what it would look like to do something about it. Inhale with me for a moment, Virgo. I want to talk about what doing something about it might actually look like, because I think the practical shape of this matters. For some of you, this is going to take the form of a direct message or call, something where this person finally breaks their own silence and reaches toward you with at least some acknowledgement of what happened and what they are feeling now. I am sensing genuine nervousness attached to this possibility on their end, the kind of nervousness that comes from caring deeply about how their reaching out will be received. For others, this might unfold more gradually through smaller signals before any direct, explicit conversation happens. A reappearance in spaces where you might notice them, whether online or in shared social circles. Small gestures that test the waters, almost, before they feel ready to be fully direct and vulnerable about everything they have been carrying. I want to describe a third possibility as well, because Spirit is showing me this as relevant for a portion of you watching this reading. Some of you are going to receive something written rather than spoken first, a letter, a long message, something that allows this person to organize their thoughts fully before placing them in front of you, rather than risking the unpredictability of saying everything in real time during a call or in-person conversation. There is something to be said for this approach. It often allows for more complete honesty than spoken words manage to capture in the moment, because the person composing it has time to consider exactly what they want you to understand rather than fumbling through emotion in real time. Whatever form this takes, I want you to notice the effort behind it rather than only the words themselves. Genuine reaching out after a period of real internal struggle tends to carry a particular weight and care in how it is delivered. You will likely be able to feel the difference between something rushed and reactive versus something that has been carefully, thoughtfully prepared. I want to address something important here about what you might be feeling as you receive this reading, because I do not want to assume your reaction without acknowledging the complexity that might be present. If this person genuinely hurt you by pushing you away, your feelings about a potential return are valid no matter what they are. You might feel hope alongside this reading. You might feel guarded, even skeptical, wondering if this realization is genuine or simply a temporary swing of emotion that will not hold up against whatever fears originally drove the distance in the first place. Both reactions deserve space here. I am not telling you how to feel about what is coming. I am simply telling you what is coming. I want to speak honestly about something here because I think it deserves real attention rather than being glossed over in favor of a purely hopeful message. Someone realizing they cannot live without you is meaningful, genuinely meaningful, but it is not automatically the same thing as someone having done the deeper internal work necessary to ensure history does not simply repeat itself. If the underlying fear or insecurity that caused them to push you away in the first place has not actually been addressed, there is a real risk that even a genuine, heartfelt return could eventually lead back to similar patterns if those root causes remain unexamined. I want you to hold this awareness alongside whatever hope this reading brings. Watch for evidence of genuine growth and reflection, not just emotional declarations. Real change tends to show up in consistent behavior over time rather than simply in words spoken in an emotional moment of realization. I also want to speak to your own power in this situation because I do not want you to feel as though you are simply waiting passively for whatever this person decides to do. You hold real agency here. You get to decide what you need to see, what you need to hear, what level of accountability feels necessary before you would consider opening the door back toward this connection. You are not obligated to immediately welcome them back simply because they have finally arrived at a realization that took them this long to reach. Your time, your healing, your own journey through this distance matters just as much as theirs does. Let me speak to what genuine reconciliation, if that is what unfolds here, would likely require. Honest conversation about why the distance happened in the first place is essential, not vague apologies that skip over the actual reasons, but real acknowledgement of the fear or insecurity or external pressure that drove this person to push you away despite caring deeply about you. Without that honest accounting, reconnection risks becoming simply a temporary patch over an unresolved problem rather than genuine healing of whatever caused the rupture originally. I want to speak further to what this process of genuine growth actually looks like from the outside, because I think it will help you discern real change from performed change when the moment comes. Real growth tends to show up in small, unglamorous ways before it shows up in grand gestures. It looks like someone who has started examining their own patterns honestly, perhaps through therapy, perhaps simply through quiet self-reflection, rather than someone who has simply decided they miss you enough to try again without addressing what caused the original rupture. I am sensing that this particular person has, at least to some degree, begun that internal work already. Not perfectly, not completely, but genuinely. There is evidence in their energy of someone who is starting to understand their own patterns rather than simply reacting to the discomfort of missing you. This does not mean the work is finished. It means a foundation is being built that, if continued, could support a genuinely different outcome this time around, rather than a repeat of what happened before. I want to speak to the timing of all this because I know that question often sits at the front of your mind when receiving a reading like this one. This feels close, Virgo. The internal shift has already happened. The realization is no longer something building gradually in the background. It has become something actively pressing on this person, something they are now consciously aware they need to address rather than continue avoiding. I am sensing movement toward action within a relatively short window from now, though I want to be honest that the exact timing always depends on this person finally overcoming their fear enough to follow through. I want to offer you something grounding to hold on to, regardless of how this ultimately unfolds. Your life has continued moving forward during whatever distance existed between you. I want you to keep nurturing that forward movement rather than placing your life on hold, simply because this reading suggests reconnection may be approaching. Whatever happens with this person, you continuing to grow, continuing to build a meaningful life independent of their choices, remains the strongest, healthiest position from which to receive whatever they ultimately bring to you. As I bring this reading toward its close, I want to leave you with the complete picture of everything that came through today. This person pushed you away out of fear, insecurity, or circumstances that felt overwhelming at the time, even while caring about you deeply. Since then, they have tried unsuccessfully to fill the space you used to occupy and have arrived at a genuine, accumulating realization that life without you feels significantly emptier than they expected. They are approaching, or have already reached, the point where reaching back toward you feels more necessary than continuing to avoid the vulnerability of doing so. When they do reach out, approach it with openness, but also with discernment, watching for genuine reflection and growth rather than simply emotional words in a vulnerable moment. I want to remind you one final time that whatever unfolds from here, you have not been standing still during this period of distance. You have been living, adjusting, finding your own footing in a life that had to reorganize itself around an absence you did not choose. That resilience belongs entirely to you, and it remains yours regardless of what this person ultimately decides to do or how this story continues from here. If this reading resonated with you today, please share it with a Virgo who might be sensing something similar shifting in their own situation. And let me know in the comments if someone specific came to mind while you were listening to this. I read every comment and I carry your stories with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo, what was pushed away is finding its way back. And how you receive it is entirely your choice to make.